It's the thing that shuts down pipelines, brings city governments to a screeching halt, and locks up your priceless family photos. Today, we're going to pull back the curtain and demystify the one digital threat that's just constantly in the headlines: ransomware.
So you've definitely heard the word ransomware thrown around a lot. But what is it really? How does it actually get onto your computer? And maybe more importantly, how in the world do you stop it? Well, those are the exact questions we're diving into right now.
And listen, this isn't some abstract threat that's happening somewhere else. Ransomware is the real deal. It's the culprit behind huge, real-world problems like the colonial pipeline shutdown and attacks that have absolutely crippled city governments, school systems, and even police departments. The fallout it's immediate and it can be really severe.
To really get a handle on this, it helps to think of ransomware as, well, basically a digital hostage crisis. And this is a crisis that doesn't care who you are. It doesn't matter if you're a massive corporation or just using your home PC. The way it works and the danger it poses are exactly the same. So, what's happening under the hood? At its core, ransomware is just malicious software, malware, that sneaks on your computer and basically puts a digital lock on all your important files. We're talking photos, documents, everything. Then, boom, a message pops up demanding a ransom, almost always in cryptocurrency, in exchange for the key to unlock your own stuff. So, how does a perfectly good computer turn into a digital hostage situation? Let's break down the typical anatomy of a ransomware attack, step by step. And you'll see it's a surprisingly patient and very methodical process. Okay, so the attack usually follows a pretty clear path. First, the attackers scan the internet looking for a weak spot. Once they find a way in, they inject their malicious code. But here's the really sneaky part. They wait. That code can just sit there, dormant, for weeks, sometimes even months, and we're going to see why that's so devious in just a minute. Only then does it wake up, encrypt everything in sight, and finally, that ransom demand appears on your screen. Now, when you hear this, you're probably picturing these brilliant super hackers, using incredibly advanced, top-secret techniques to break in. But the reality, the actual secret behind how most of these attacks succeed, is a lot simpler and, honestly, a lot more frustrating. And here it is. This is the big secret. We all imagine hackers using these unknown, unstoppable zero-day exploits, right? But look at the data. That only happens about 5% of the time. A staggering 95% of ransomware attacks exploit known vulnerabilities. We're talking about security holes that already have a fix available. Just let that sink in for a second. The vast majority of these attackers aren't geniuses inventing new ways to get in. They're just opportunists using old keys on doors that we forgot to lock. They're using exploits for problems that have been known about for months, sometimes even years. And you know what that means? It means most of these attacks are totally preventable. Okay, so if these attacks are largely preventable, what does a good defense plan actually look like? Well, it's all about building layers of security. And we're going to start with your first and most important perimeter. Your first line of defense is always the network itself, your digital front door, so to speak. This means simple stuff, like keeping the firmware on your router updated and installing security patches right away. Seriously, an unpatched router is like leaving your front door wide open with a welcome mat out. All right, next up is the machine itself. This is all about basic digital hygiene, but it is absolutely critical. Keep your operating system and all your software updated. That's how you close those known vulnerabilities we were just talking about. Use strong, unique passwords. And please, if a device is running an old, unsupported system like Windows 7, it just should not be connected to the internet. It's basically a sitting duck. And while we're on the topic of security, let's talk access for a second. A password is a secret you know. A security key is a physical thing you have. And while a strong password is good, a security key is way, way better. In fact, for security, it is superior in every possible way, because an attacker can't just guess it or steal it from halfway around the world. For businesses and bigger organizations, the principles are exactly the same, they're just on a much larger scale. This means you should be actively checking the public Common Vulnerabilities and Expos list, the CVE list, for known flaws. If you absolutely have to run an old system for some reason, air gap it, unplug it from the internet completely. And if you don't have a dedicated security team, find a vendor who can monitor this stuff for you. But what happens if, despite all your hard work, some super sophisticated attacker finds one of those rare zero-day exploits? What happens when the worst-case scenario actually happens? Well, that brings us to your final and most critical line of defense.
So the alarms are blaring, your files are encrypted, and that awful ransom note is staring you in the face. What do you do now? Is your only option really to pay these criminals and just hope they give you your data back? Well, not if you've planned ahead.
Backups. That's it. This is your get-out-of-jail-free card. It's your only guaranteed way to get your data back without paying a single cent to the bad guys. But, and I cannot stress this enough, having a backup is totally useless if you can't restore from it. You have to test your restore process, and you have to do it regularly. If you're not testing, you don't have a backup strategy, you just have a backup wish.
And this brings us right back to that sneaky, dormant code. Remember how it can just sit there waiting for weeks or months? This is exactly why. If your system got infected 6 weeks ago, restoring last week's backup isn't going to save you. You'll just restore a perfect copy of all your files with that ticking time bomb still inside. So the real challenge isn't just restoring your data, it's restoring your systems to a point in time before you were ever compromised. And that right there is the real key to surviving ransomware.